You've been carrying a version of yourself that no longer fits, like wearing clothes from a past life that feel tighter with every passing day, yet you keep holding on, not because it feels right, but because it feels familiar. The habits, the thoughts, the identity you built over time slowly became your comfort zone, and now even when it feels heavy, you hesitate to let it go. But comfort is not always peace. Sometimes, it's just a quiet cage that keeps you from growing. Deep inside, you can feel it, a subtle pull, a whisper that keeps reminding you that you've outgrown who you used to be, that there's more to you waiting to be lived. Still, fear steps in and asks questions. Who will you be without this old version? What if you lose yourself? What if people no longer recognize you? And so you stay the same, not because you want to, but because change feels uncertain. But the truth is, you were never meant to stay the same, you were meant to evolve, to shed layers, to become someone even closer to your true self. Letting go is not just about leaving behind habits or memories, it's about releasing an identity that once felt like home. And that's why it hurts. Because in a strange way, even your pain became a part of who you are. You learned to live with it, to introduce yourself through it, to build your story around it. So when life asks you to let go, it doesn't feel like growth, it feels like loss. Your mind tells you to hold on, to stay where things are known and predictable, even if they no longer bring you peace. But what you don't realize is that every time you cling to your past self, you block the path to your future self. Growth demands space, and space only comes when you release what no longer belongs to you. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it feels like stepping into the unknown. But sometimes, the unknown is not there to scare you, it's there to introduce you to a version of yourself you've never met before. Somewhere along the way, you created a version of yourself just to survive, a version shaped by people's expectations, past experiences, and silent fears. You became who you needed to be in order to fit in, to be accepted, to avoid pain. And slowly, that version became your identity. You stopped questioning it, stopped exploring beyond it, and started believing that this is who you truly are. But deep down, there has always been a quiet discomfort, a feeling that something is missing, something isn't fully aligned. Because your soul was never designed to be limited by the roles you play. You are not just your past, your mistakes, or the labels placed on you. You are something far greater, something evolving. And the moment you begin to question the identity you built, is the moment you begin to wake up. There was a time when a man held onto a broken glass, not because it was useful, but because it was familiar. Even though it cut his hand every time he gripped it tighter, he refused to let it go. People around him told him, "You're hurting yourself," but he would reply, "At least I know this pain. I don't know what comes after I release it." One day, exhausted and bleeding, he finally opened his hand. The glass fell, and for the first time in a long time, there was no pain. Just silence, and space. That space felt strange at first, almost empty, but slowly, it became peaceful. His hand began to heal. And in that healing, he realized something powerful. The pain was never meant to stay, it was only meant to teach. Just like that man, you've been holding on to pieces of your past that hurt you, simply because they're familiar. But healing begins the moment you find the courage to release what's breaking you. The moment you start letting go, something unexpected happens. At first, it feels like emptiness, like something is missing, like a part of you has disappeared. And that silence can feel uncomfortable, because you were so used to noise, to overthinking, to carrying emotional weight. But that emptiness is not a loss, it is space. Space for something new, something real, something aligned with who you truly are. You begin to notice small changes within yourself, a lighter heart, calmer thoughts, a sense of peace that doesn't depend on anything outside of you. This is where your true self begins to rise, not loudly, not forcefully, but gently, like a sunrise after a long night. You don't become someone new, you return to who you were always meant to be. And in that return, there is a quiet power, a strength that doesn't need validation, a peace that doesn't need explanation. As you continue this journey, there comes a moment when you look back, and barely recognize the person you used to be. Not with judgment, not with regret, but with understanding. You realize that version of you did the best it could with what it knew. But now, you know more, you feel deeper, you see clearer. The things that once triggered you no longer have the same power. The habits that once controlled you begin to fade. And slowly, without even forcing it, you become someone new. People might notice the change, they might say you've changed, that you're different. And they're right. But what they don't see is that you didn't become someone else, you finally became yourself. Growth will make you unrecognizable to your past, and that's not something to fear, it's something to be proud of. Because it means you didn't stay stuck, you chose to evolve. Becoming someone new is not just about change, it's about trust. Trusting that the person you are becoming knows the way, even when your mind is full of doubts. There will be moments when you question yourself, when the old version tries to pull you back, whispering familiar thoughts, reminding you of who you used to be. And for a second, you might feel lost between two identities, the one you are leaving behind, and the one you are stepping into. But this is where your strength is tested. Not in holding on, but in continuing forward. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to feel ready all the time. Growth doesn't wait for perfection, it moves with courage. And courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to keep going despite it. So trust yourself, even in uncertainty. Because the new version of you is not weak, it's just unfamiliar. And unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong, it means you're expanding beyond what you once believed was possible. There was a caterpillar that spent its entire life crawling, believing that the ground was all it would ever know. It watched the sky but never imagined it belonged there. One day, something within it began to change. It felt uncomfortable, restless, like it was no longer meant for the life it had always known. So it went into stillness, into isolation, forming a cocoon. Inside that cocoon, everything at once began to dissolve. It must have felt like the end, like losing itself completely. But what it didn't realize was that it wasn't dying, it was transforming. And after what felt like darkness and uncertainty, it emerged, not as the same crawling creature, but as something entirely new, a butterfly. The same being, but with wings. Just like that caterpillar, you might feel like you're losing yourself in this process. But you're not losing yourself, you're becoming. The discomfort, the confusion, the silence, it's all part of your transformation. One day, you will look back and realize, you didn't fall apart, you grew wings. At some point, you stop forcing things, and you start flowing. You stop chasing validation, stop seeking approval, and stop trying to prove who you are to the world. Because now, you know. There is a quiet confidence within you, a calm understanding that doesn't need to be loud. You begin to trust your own energy, your own decisions, your own path. Life starts to feel different, not because everything around you changed, but because you did. You respond instead of reacting, you observe instead of overthinking, you choose peace over chaos. And in this space, your true self begins to lead. Not the version shaped by fear, but the one guided by awareness, clarity, and inner truth. This is where alignment happens, where your outer world slowly starts reflecting your inner transformation. You are no longer lost, you are directed from within. The person you are becoming is not a stranger. It's you, without fear, without limits, without the weight of your past holding you down. It's the version of you that always existed deep within, waiting for the right moment to rise. And now, that moment has come. You've let go, you've faced yourself, you've walked through uncertainty, and you didn't break. You transformed. This new you doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't doubt, it trusts. It doesn't hold on to what's gone, it embraces what's meant to come. And most importantly, it understands that growth is not a destination, it's a continuous journey. So keep evolving, keep trusting, keep becoming. Because every step you take away from your old self, is a step closer to your true self. And one day, you'll look in the mirror, and for the first time, you'll feel at home.